Hey everybody, it's Tiffany Lashmet with the Texas Agriculture Law YouTube channel. I'm here today with my friend and a Lubbock-based attorney, Garrett Couts, who has been on my podcast talking about renewable energy leases. Garrett, talk to us a little bit about what folks need to know if they're looking into a wind or a solar agreement.
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole laundry list of stuff that we talk about, but in the podcast episode, I think we're just going to try to hit maybe the top 10 or so. So really excited to do that. I'd have to say number one, if I could only do a couple, I'd say one, don't get in a rush. Typically when these things are brought to a landowner, it's kind of posed to them as like it's a hurry, hurry, hurry situation. Most of the time it's not. You want to take your time. These are really long-term agreements, and so you want to make sure you're comfortable with it and really understand it. So it's okay to slow down a little bit. And then number two, know that there's this whole legal concept behind this, but the short version is if it's not written in the lease, it likely isn't enforceable and doesn't matter. So, if the landman's telling you, oh, we never do that, or we always do that, or whatever, making you comfortable with the deal, that's fine. But if they're not willing to put that in black and white ink on the paper, then it doesn't count.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both of those really important. And Garrett, one thing I think important as well, sometimes landowners, I think, get confused about renewable energy leases versus something like a pipeline easement where maybe eminent domain comes into play. Important to know when you're talking about, we don't have to be in a hurry. A company can't condemn your land to build a solar project or to build a wind project, right? You have more leverage in this scenario than in an eminent domain situation.
That's right. The very short version, we could probably do a whole, I would actually you have a podcast episode on eminent domain. The short version is these are private projects with private energy companies, and they do intend to put the energy into the stream of commerce and likely on a common carrier transmission line or something, which would have eminent domain authority. But these actual projects, the solar farm, the wind farm, they're owned by private companies and they are not a public carrier, right? So they do not have the power of eminent domain.
Right. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. So if you're interested in this topic, we've got tons of information on our podcast. You can check out Ag Law in the Field. Garrett and I walk through everything from the different financial terms, restoration after a project is over, legal considerations, what you should have them do and not do on the property. Lots of important information. Garrett, one final thing I would like to get your take on. Talk to me about the importance of having an attorney review a solar or a wind lease. First of all, this is not some like simple legal document, right? Oftentimes we're talking 30, 40-page documents that can last for decades.
Yeah, the terms of these can potentially be, 4, 5, 6 decades easy. In fact, most of them are about 6 decades. So we're talking long term. There's a lot of technicalities and a lot of different types of law converging here. We're talking about regulatory stuff for environment and energy. We're talking about contract law. We're talking about agricultural USDA issues, whether that's CRP considerations or ag use taxation or any of that kind of stuff. We're talking about impacts on inheritance and estate planning type things and getting your operating note. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts that all get crunched into this 30 to 60 page document that's going to last for 50, 60 years. So it's just good to have a lawyer at a minimum break it down for you so you at least know what's in it. And then, of course, you'll find a lot of the default ones that they send at the beginning don't necessarily cover all the things you think they should. For example, those procedures and activities on your land.
That's right. Yep. And one important thing to note, Garrett, some energy companies are willing to pay you, like reimburse you fees toward your legal expenses. That's something you can negotiate in your lease.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of ethical rules about that a lawyer could help walk you through. But the short version is there is a proper way, and it is fairly common now in the market for energy companies to contribute toward your legal costs of getting the deal done.
Awesome. Well, if you want to hear more from Garrett about his top 10 tips for negotiating a renewable energy lease, go check out episode number 171 of the Ag Law in the Field podcast. We'll put a link in the notes below.
Thanks, Tiffany.